The leader of the official opposition is Andrew Scheer, and he joins me in the studio. Welcome to the show, Mr. Scheer.
Nice to see you again, Don.
Do you believe Daniel Jean when he says, "Oh, it was all my idea. I just went to the Prime Minister's office to get some reporters' names to brief"?
Well, somebody in the Prime Minister's office must have signed off on the overall plan. Still not a lot of clarity even today after this much-awaited briefing. You remember the Liberals voted for 20 hours in the House of Commons to prevent the very thing that they finally agreed to just a few days afterwards. Was this one MP acting alone? Did anyone in the Prime Minister's office have a list of invitees? Was that list vetted and screened? If so, how did this not raise flags? And now weeks and weeks of this theory out there lingering, accusing the government of India of being part of this. This has been a disastrous trip to India from start to finish for the Prime Minister.
Sure has. I keep thinking it's been just last month, but it's actually February as we're going on for like almost 2 months. Are you frustrated that we don't really know who these rogue elements are? We just know that there were some elements in an India government that were miscommunicating in an organized fashion, but he wouldn't name them.
Well, there's a lot here that still doesn't make sense even today. For weeks, the Prime Minister was standing in the House advancing the theory that it was rogue elements in the Indian government. Today, Daniel Jean seems to have indicated that that wasn't the case. Why has the Prime Minister allowed that to linger out there? We've got official responses from the government of India. We know they're not pleased. We know that it's not a good place for our diplomatic relations to be when you've got these accusations lingering out there. When did the Prime Minister become aware that now Daniel Jean was backing away from these original accusations? Like I said, we have to go through the transcript here because there's so much to unravel. Talking about false narratives that were being put out there, the only narrative that was put out there was the one that was put out by the Prime Minister, that these were rogue elements in the Indian government, and now perhaps that's not even the case.
Yeah, you're going to get the juicy stuff if that exists. You're going to get classified briefing, and I guess you're going to do that in the next couple of weeks. Is that the plan?
We've run some dates by. Hopefully, we can get that coordinated soon.
All right. I mean, how do you handle it if you've learned something that's incendiary and should be brought out, but you're no longer going to be allowed to bring it out?
Well, I'm going to ask very specific questions about what is actually classified and what is not, and that's been a key issue for weeks now. Remember, we had Minister Ralph Goodale running away from the media saying, "I can't talk about anything because it's all classified." And then we find out that it's not classified, and he could have actually explained. All we've been asking for from the get-go, once this briefing took place to the media, was that Parliament was provided with the same information. That's what the Liberals stonewalled for, they tried to hide and block for weeks. I'll wait and see what's provided in the briefing, but the fundamental point, I believe, was made that, that Parliament had the right to receive all the information that was provided to the media.
But I didn't hear anything today that wasn't provided to the media. In other words, I don't know what's left to be disclosed, because it seems like the narrative he put forward was the narrative that the reporters put forward. So what's left to be looked at?
We'll see. And there's even some contradictions between what was said today and what was reported by the media. We also know that members of the media were told that they could not report on everything that was said on the conference call. So as you mentioned, this has been going on for weeks. It would have served Justin Trudeau much better to come out right away and say, here's what happened. Someone in my office knew that Mr. Atwal was invited, didn't do a proper checking. We're going to take steps to try to fix that in the future. That would have been the right way to handle this, just to come clean and say that a mistake was made. To have this linger on for weeks is a complete sign of his failure to be transparent and accountable.
Trans Mountain Pipeline, it is still unresolved. We're still trying to figure out what's going to be done to save it. Are you in favor or opposed of taxpayer backstopping or investing an equity stake in this project?
Before I get to that, I just want to set the stage for this, because what the Liberals would like us to concentrate on is Trans Mountain, and to say whether or not this gets built or not is the threshold of success for their government. Let's take a few steps back and remember that this government vetoed Northern Gateway, killed a pipeline to deepwater ports. They killed Energy East. They are ramming through Bill C-69, which further drives out investment in the energy sector. $87 billion of investment have already left. I don't believe that anybody thinks that taxpayers' money being used to build a pipeline is the preferred solution. What Justin Trudeau should have done is what we asked him to do, which is months ago, take steps to get this pipeline built. He's waited for this to become a crisis. He's waited until a deadline has been given from the pipeline proponent itself. He could have acted in February. He could have acted in October. He's known for months that John Horgan, Premier of British Columbia, is against this pipeline. He's waited for this to become a crisis point.
The timing, you might be a concern, but I got to ask you, you protested against Bombardier getting bailouts. You raised concerns concerns about General Motors. Should Trans Mountain get taxpayers' money?
No, I don't believe that taxpayers' money should be used to fund infrastructure projects. Kinder Morgan was willing to pay for this on their own. They were willing to use investor money. They were willing to use shareholders' money. And that's how it has worked for decades in Alberta. Under this Prime Minister's leadership, he's now sending the signal that in order to get a major energy project built in this country, you need to become partners with the government. That is a terrible indictment of his own legacy.
Quick final question, if I could. Alberta is rolling out legislation sometime in the next hour or so that will allow it to curtail oil and gas supplies being shipped from Alberta to BC. How do you think that is rolled out? Is that an appropriate response?
Again, and this kind of goes back to the dispute between the Alberta government and the BC government over wine, and that impacted on British Columbians and Alberta. It's terrible when a Prime Minister is overseeing the Confederation when this is the state between provinces. Nobody wins when this happens. This is why Conservatives were asking for the Prime Minister to take steps to table a plan months ago to avoid this very thing. When things become a crisis, that's when the stakes get raised. And we could have avoided a lot of this if the Prime Minister had have tabled a plan or indicated what tools he was willing to use months ago.
But it's here.
Yes so that's the issue. And again, we're concentrating on Trans Mountain. I think the Liberals would like us to forget about all the other things they've done. Killing Northern Gateway, killing Energy East, imposing a carbon tax.
Should Alberta be cutting oil and gas supplies to BC?
That is a decision for Albertans and British Columbia. For Albertans, a Conservative government would never let it get to the point where one province has to take these types of steps to get a project that is built that's in the national interest.
We're out of time. Thank you, Mr. Scheer. Appreciate you coming on.
Thank you very much.